From the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, this is Carolina Week.
Good evening and welcome to the April 12th edition of Carolina Week. I'm Fred Shropshire.
And I'm Jacqueline McClary. Thank you for joining us for a look at Carolina news and events. UNC-Chapel Hill students are observing Holocaust Remembrance Week in a memorable way. Carolina Week reporter Stephanie Maxwell found they aren't ready to forget the past.
To the left, again to the right.
The beginning of the end through the eyes of director Steven Spielberg. The movie Schindler's List shows the chain of events that led to the extermination of 6 million Jews during Nazi Germany rule. Decades have passed, and a new century is upon us. But those who survived the Holocaust refuse to forget what happened.
We owe it to our parents, to our families that perished, that the story should be told.
Henry Vogelhut and other Holocaust survivors have brought their stories to UNC-Chapel Hill for Holocaust Remembrance Week. They told students about the incident during a survivor luncheon. Remembrance Week co-chair Lisa Wald says their presence is a real teaching tool.
There's a lot of lessons that I think are still need to be learned by our generation, and the best way to do it right now is to use the survivors who are still around.
Nellie Toll, an artist and Holocaust survivor, showed how she used art as a young child to survive the pain. She spoke of the ethnic cleansing and the reality of other children who were too young to understand.
Over 1 million innocent children died in the Holocaust. The minute they were born, they were destined to be murdered.
Children, men, and women were not able to escape persecution. And to remember their legacy, for 24 hours straight, the names of those who died will be read.
Toll and other survivors say remembering the dead is important, but they say there's more that can be done.
I hope that the image and the power of your memory and the retention would remain with you, and you will be all vigilant, and you will be all our messengers to the future generations and those that are not here in this room to tell them that it really did happen.
Holocaust survivors say telling the story will keep it from happening again. In Chapel Hill, I'm Stephanie Maxwell, Carolina Week.
The Holocaust Remembrance Committee has planned an Around the Circle discussion about the Holocaust on Wednesday, April 19th in the BCC.
While some students are mourning the wrongful death of innocent people, UNC law students are working on freeing innocent people on death row. It's called the Innocence Project. UNC law student Marion Hone says the amount of mail they received weekly is overwhelming.
Because we're flooded with letters each day, each week, what is out there, what needs to be done. And that's maybe a minimal commitment of maybe an hour a week or less. But, if you actually review cases.
We'll have more on the Innocence Project for you next week here on Carolina Week. It's been months of protest over the Elian Gonzalez case. Both Cubans and Americans are expressing different opinions concerning the possible reunion of the young boy and his father. It seems that the reunion is likely. The case has sparked a controversy between Cuban President Fidel Castro and anti-communist groups in Miami. UNC-Chapel Hill grad student John Ellenston has just returned from Cuba and says Cubans aren't very happy with Cuban Americans.
Miami and of the South Florida political scene have probably taken a bit of a nosedive in the last few months. I think Cubans on the island are very alienated from the Cuban exile leadership in Miami now over their handling, because of their handling of this Elian case.
The boy and relatives are living in the home of a Miami area nun.
And in other news, as graduation draws near, seniors make final preparations for the big day in May. So exactly what are those preparations? There are a couple obvious necessities upcoming graduates at UNC need to check off on their to-do list. For example, turn in all library books and pay overdue fees. Don't forget to pay parking tickets, and make sure all academic hours are completed and the Carolina blue cap and gown fit perfectly. And last but not least, make sure you can pass the swim test. If you want a diploma in your hand, you must prove you can swim for 5 minutes. Students must swim at least 1 lap and use the remaining time to tread water. Don't let an F on the swim test drown you in sorrow. The last day for seniors to take the swim test at Fetzer Gym is this Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
They don't swim, but they do perform cartwheels, flips, and acrobatics. They even dance upside down. And as Carolina Week's Jason Morrell shows us, they do it all high in the sky.
Time stood still Saturday to let gravity take control as Project Bandaloop invaded the bell tower.
I never really thought people went up in the bell tower until I saw people hanging from ropes and stuff.
Testing the boundaries of dance and performance, the group employs aerial, vertical, and horizontal movements to skew the forces of gravity. It all comes together as a form of public art.
What's great about that is we're ambassadors of our art form, of art in general, and also it's kind of a way to bring people together in community.
Artistic director and founder Amelia Rudolph says Project Bandaloop performs at a variety of sites, from urban towers and skyscrapers to mountainsides and granite walls. But this time, it was UNC's bell tower. I think it's safe to say the bell tower hasn't seen this kind of excitement in years, perhaps in forever. And once you're up this high, it's quite easy to see the reason why. But performer Rachel Lincoln says the height's no sweat.
You get really acclimated to it. It's weird. I think the first time, for me at least, anytime I go on a structure for the first time, there's this sense of a moment of real fear going over the edge of any new building. But once you're up there for a couple of hours or a couple of rehearsals, it's like nothing.
Spectators from all ages seem to enjoy what they may never again get a chance to see.
Oh yeah, it was fun. And it was nice because the clouds were moving, so it looked like there was some other movement going on. It was just great to see.
Never seen anything like it. Wish I could be up there.
In Chapel Hill, Jason Morrell, Carolina Week.
Project Bandaloop has performed at such sites as the walls of El Capitan in Yosemite and the Space Needle in Seattle.
You won't have to travel far to see a Carolina basketball legend. Michael Jordan is making a trip to Chapel Hill sometime during the month of April. It'll be Jordan's first visit to his restaurant, 23, located on Franklin Street. The restaurant has been open for 7 months, but Hurricane Floyd delayed the grand opening in the fall. During his stay, Jordan plans to meet with 23 fans. And if you want to have a chance to be one of the lucky 23, you can register at the restaurant. We're not sure of the exact date of Jordan's visit, but Carolina Week will be there when he's there.
Powder versus needles? That's the current issue concerning diabetes medication.
Learn about the possibilities of a new option for some diabetics when we return.
A freshman's first day in Phillips Hall is a humbling experience. You need to get to the 3rd floor, but not every stairwell leads you there. Just as in life, take the wrong way up and you won't get anywhere. None of the corridors make sense. It's like being in a huge maze at 7:57 while you're looking for your 8 o'clock class. No one knows the real Carolina like a student. Carolina Week, the student news show.
What is United Cerebral Palsy? Therapy and education. Employment opportunities. Independent living. Family camp. United Cerebral Palsy. Building bridges to independence. You see people, we see promise. Call 800-868-3787.
Major depression is a serious illness that occurs when chemicals in the brain don't work properly.
Carolina Week's Lee Skinner joins us now with more details. Lee?
That's right, Jacqueline and Fred. According to the American Psychiatric Association, major depression affects more than 350,000 people in North Carolina. One of those people is a priest, right here in Chapel Hill.
It wasn't always so easy for Father Philip Leach to lead a service. Father Philip, as his parishioners call him, is senior pastor at the Newman Center, a Catholic parish in Chapel Hill. Not so long ago, Father Philip was so depressed, he struggled to do his job.
My first prayer, the first words out of my mouth every morning when I was in the depth of that depression were, Lord, just give me the grace to make it through the day.
For years, Father Philip didn't know he suffered from depression. He says he thought he was just overworked and tired.
Probably the depression was present for a very long time in my life, at a low, sort of almost non-noticeable level. And I just assumed that everybody had this kind of gray cloud hovering way in the background.
Several events darkened the picture. He moved from Fayetteville to Chapel Hill. He increased his workload as he ministered to 2 diverse parishes in Chapel Hill. Father Philip's depression worsened when some in his parish questioned his leadership.
A lady came up to me and put her finger on my chest and said, I've never hated a priest until I met you. And at that moment, I felt my world just fall apart.
Father Philip was suffering from major depression. He took a sabbatical. He exercised, lost weight, and took herbal supplements. But nothing worked until he found a therapist he trusted.
He really began to recognize how catastrophic or awful his thinking was. When conflict would come up, he would project it all the way to the end, and the end would always be disastrous.
What I wanted was just for it all to end. I just didn't want to feel that bad anymore. And the only way I could imagine it was through death.
Next week, we'll take a look at the symptoms of depression and find out if Father Philip was able to overcome his depression.
Okay, thank you, Lee.
No problem.
Some diabetics might be able to trade in their needles for a new form of inhaled insulin. That's at least what doctors say could happen if powder insulin replaces insulin applicators like these. Researchers have studied a powder insulin treatment for 3 years now and hope to win Food and Drug Administration approval by next year. The powder insulin is absorbed in the lungs through an inhaler resembling those used by asthma patients. Both doctors and patients agree that the inhalant would be more convenient and less painful than injections. Manufacturers Eli Lilly will sponsor trials of the insulin at UNC hospitals later this year. Diabetes sufferers aren't the only ones making a trade. Philip Morris is trading in its bad image for a more positive one. Philip Morris executive Jay Poole played this commercial to a group of UNC students and faculty Monday at Carroll Hall. Philip Morris is trying to change its negative image and trying hard. Poole says tobacco, billboards, and other logoed items promoting smoking are gone, and Philip Morris has a $1.5 million budget to fight against youth smoking. Poole explained that Philip Morris has been out of step with society for years, but is now listening to everyone. Poole was on campus as part of Mass Communication Day in the journalism school.
Though smoking is usually not allowed on buses, it may not be an unusual sight to see smoke or vapor on this bus. It's the traffic. State-of-the-art technology to students across North Carolina. The slogan says it's the best thing in science education to hit the road. And earlier this week, UNC-Chapel Hill and area high schools made the mobile laboratory part of the secondary curriculum. The lab will travel to schools, heightening public awareness about the role of science and technology in the state's economy. For Asia Williams, the lab would be useful because of her special interest in genetic diseases.
Well, it's going to help us further our knowledge in science and get a close-up hand on sickle cell and other diseases, genetic-based diseases.
The nickname for the lab is Destiny, which stands for Delivering Edge-Cutting Science, Technology, and Internet across North Carolina for years to come. Glaxo Wellcome awarded the UNC a 5-year, $1.6 million grant to build and support the bus.
From our bell tower bird's eye view, we can see it's been a beautiful week.
But what will the view be like this weekend? Stay tuned as we find out.
Women's Center, may I help you?
The Women's Center is a nonprofit agency that has served as a meeting place for women in the Triangle since 1979, making it one of the oldest freestanding women's centers in the country. The mission of the Women's Center is to provide a supportive community where all women can inspire each other to grow, both personally and professionally.
I was going through a crisis at home, and I contacted Helpline, and they referred me directly to the Women's Center.
I think the Women's Center is really important for the community because it offers so many different kinds of resources, and if we don't have the resource here, we can find an avenue or a way for women to find the answers that they need.
It is inspiring. It's so exciting to be a part of something that really matters and really changes things.
You can support the Women's Center through membership or by sending a contribution to the Women's Center, 210 Henderson Street, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, 27514.
What do we have in store for the weekend?
Well, I hope you enjoyed the nice weather in the beginning of the week because we don't have that great of a forecast for y'all. But let's take a look at our weather question of the week. What is the main contributor of wildfires in the United States? Is it A, low temperature, B, dry conditions, C, weak winds, D, moist vegetation? We'll give you the answer at the end of our forecast. Well, our video was taken by one of our reporters on Wednesday, and can you guess where it's from? Look at that view. It's from the bell tower. Most of us here don't ever get to see our beautiful campus from that high, and we never get a chance to look at it from the bell tower top. This week is senior week, so there are plenty of fun activities during the week, including that bell climb. Now, for our weather city, it's Naples, Florida, not to be confused with Naples, Italy. On Saturday, fire broke out all along the southwest coast, consuming about 14,000 acres. Now, no significant rain is in the forecast for the Naples area today, but scattered showers could provide at least some relief to the firefighters. But with that high temperature of 83 degrees, conditions may still not change. So, as you can see, sinuses have affected me. I've got a stuffed up cold, but if you're ever in the area of trees, expect that pollen level to be high, especially in pine trees, and you can't go anywhere without being around trees. But in our forecast for the weekend, we may see some rain to kind of wash away that pollen area. On Monday, we're going to have a high of 75, but those scattered showers, so don't plan any outdoor activities. Saturday, we're going to have a high of 80, which is real good, but those showers kind of contradict our weather. High of 79 on Sunday, and Monday we have a high of 75 degrees, so no real comfort level in the rain, but if you want to get away for the weekend, you might not want to go to the beaches because they basically have the same kind of weather that we do. Thunderstorms and rain are predicted with water temperatures around 50 degrees. It's not quite as high as it should be, but cooler weather around our area all weekend. Well, we've talked about wildfires briefly, so do y'all have an answer of what you think what the main contributor is?
I would guess the dry conditions, perhaps.
Yeah, Fred, you're right. It's B, dry conditions. And they say that April showers bring May flowers, so hopefully in the next weeks to come, we can probably see some flowers blooming out there.
Okay, well, thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you. The UNC women's softball team has reason to smile.
Details about a winning weekend coming up next in sports.
I need a break.
Yeah, well, what I need is a little peace and quiet when I come home. I've been working hard all day.
You have got to do something about that son of yours. I can't stand it anymore.
Well, maybe if you were a better mother, he wouldn't be such a problem.
Better mother? When do you ever spend time with him?
Family Counseling Service of Durham. We can help. Call 286-3757.
Let your knowledge grow at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. Through public service, research, conservation, and education. The garden brings North Carolina's rich natural heritage to you. It's a beautiful way to learn.
And now Carolina Week's TD Evans joins us to update us on the sports. TD?
Thank you, Fred. Carolina baseball has been getting a lot of attention lately, but the Tar Heels softball team had a better weekend this past weekend. Carolina won the Tar Heel Invitational Tournament by beating the University of Virginia 6-2 in Sunday's title game. Junior Radera McHugh won Tournament MVP and ACC Pitcher of the Week for her performance. She struck out 8 batters on Sunday. Beth Olin was another star for the Heels. She went 3 for 3 on Sunday and had 2 RBI. Carolina has a 37-13 record after 3 weekend victories. They face Florida State in a doubleheader on Sunday. Well, softball might come to mind when you think of spring sports, but for the Tar Heel football team, it means the start of a new season. With 2 new coordinators bringing a fresh approach, Carolina hopes to erase any memories of last year's dismal 3-8 season.
We're excited. It's very, very competitive out there, high intensity practices every day, and last year's gone. We're not worrying about that. We're focusing on this year. We got a chance to do some great things this year.
In order to do those great things that quarterback Antoine Black is talking about, the Tar Heels must revamp an offense that averaged less than 17 points per game a year ago. The solution? According to the team, it's the more open offense brought in by new offensive coordinator Mike O'Kane.
It's an offense to where we got a pass play called, and if you can't find anybody open, your defense is probably that good, or we just dump some dumb quarterbacks.
For the last 12 years, in my opinion, the offense that Mike O'Kane and his staff have presented, preparing for week after week, has been one of the toughest that we've had to work against year after year.
The new offense took plenty of licks this spring, as the coaching staff allowed more hitting by the defense than in past years. That's something linebacker Brandon Spoon says his side of the ball needed.
Especially with the defense practicing tackles like that, it prevents a lot of missed tackles in the game. It's something that bothered us a whole lot last year.
Another component missing from last year's Tar Heel team was a consistent big play threat at the running back position. Carolina hopes redshirt freshman Willie Parker is the answer. Parker stepped up after fellow rushers Daniel Davis and Dominique Williams were held out of practice this spring for academic reasons. Coach Torbush says that he's prepared to go into the fall with those who practiced in the spring.
If somebody else comes forward that's not practicing right now, that's an extra. It's very important to me as the head football coach, very important to this football program, and very important to this university that a young man is not only an excellent football player, but that he's a very good student and very good off the field as well, and that's important.
And if you're wondering about the status of quarterback Ronald Curry's torn Achilles tendon, an injury that kept him out most of last year, Torbush says Curry is about a month ahead of schedule and should be at full strength by the end of May. Well, full strength could definitely be used to describe the Carolina men's tennis team. The Tar Heels' dual match win streak stands at 11 going into the week after Sunday's victory against Clemson. The Tar Heels won all 6 of the singles matches after losing the doubles point earlier in the day. Number 1 seed Tripp Phillips beat Clemson's top big gun Josh Goffey 1-6, 6-4, and 6-2. And number 2 seed Asaf Drury won 6-3 and 6-1. It was the last home match for the 2 seniors at the Cone Kenfield Tennis Center. The 19th-ranked Heels traveled to Virginia and Maryland this weekend. The men's lacrosse team is on a different kind of streak, one that is jeopardizing the Heels' chance of reaching the NCAA playoffs. UNC has lost 4 in a row after falling 13-7 to defending national champion Virginia. The Heels played even with the second-ranked Cavs in the first half before UVA scored 5 unanswered goals in the fourth quarter. Carolina will be back in action at Fetzer Saturday against the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. So after winning the first 6 games of the season, Tar Heel lacrosse teams dropped 4 in a row and need to get it together if they want to make a playoff run.
Okay, thanks for sports, TD.
About twice as many UNC students play club sports as varsity sports, but varsity sports get a lot more money and much better facilities.
Carolina Week's Corey Ford says that discrepancy can hurt Carolina's other student athletes.
You gotta keep it touch.
Nearly 2,000 students participate in club sports, but unlike varsity teams that have their own facilities, all club teams play on the same two fields, Ehringhaus and Carmichael. But PE classes and intramural sports also use these fields. Club sports director Steve Bradley says the fields are overburdened.
What happens with the fields is that because they are used so much, there's very little time for the field to actually recover.
So many people play on these fields that the grass soon turns to dust, making it hard to breathe and also hard to fall on, especially when rocks like these are sticking out of the ground. That's going to hurt if you hit your head on it. Rugby player Derek Cool found that out the hard way.
My face hit the ground and just slid, and the dirt tore it up.
The hard ground makes an abrasion like this one common. Most student athletes come away with scraped knees, and when the wind picks up, they come away coughing. The field gets even worse when it rains. Rugby player Todd Lisbua says it literally turns into a river.
You can't play on something like that. My feet sometimes would be in a puddle up to my ankles. And it's hard to run, you can't move, and again, it's unsafe.
The university has decided to replace the natural surface on Carmichael Field with a surface that can withstand the beating, AstroTurf. Unlike most turf fields, this new turf will be soft and won't burn when you slide on it. Club sports participants say anything is an improvement.
Honestly, I don't see how it could get any worse than it is right now.
The turf will make Carmichael Field playable in all weather conditions. Of course, nobody closes Carmichael Field anymore anyway. At Carmichael Field, I'm Corey Ford, Carolina Week.
On Carmichael Field is scheduled to begin this week. It should be finished by the start of the fall semester.
One 7-year-old is in trouble because of what he did for his favorite cereal.
But he's also getting rewarded for his bad behavior.
Find out what this boy did when Carolina Week continues.
Stroke is a brain attack. It's the third leading killer in North Carolina. Warning signs appear suddenly. Sudden severe headache, vision problems, trouble speaking, numbness on one side of the body. We're all at risk. Know the symptoms so you can get medical help fast. For information about stroke, contact the American Heart Association at 1-800-AHA-USA1.
When most kids get hungry, they raid the cookie jar, but one 7-year-old in Tacoma, Washington went a bit farther for a bite of his favorite food. When Pearlie King wanted some Cheerios, he drove the family car to the grocery store. Police stopped the boy before he finished the trip, and Cheerios executives jumped when they heard about Pearlie's craving. The company gave Pearlie a year's supply of their product and other prizes so they could use him in their advertisements. But the move also has the police worried. They say that other kids might pull this stunt for a prize bigger than anything they'd pull out of a cereal box.
Why didn't I think of that?
That's crazy.
I don't know. Well, that does it for another edition of Carolina Week. Thanks for joining.
Be sure to tune in next week. Have a great night.
That's a funny story. Good job on sports. If you'd like to contact Carolina Week, our mailing address is Carolina Week, Campus Box 3365, or you can reach us by email at carolinaweek@unc.edu.